Now it's time to bleed my brakes. Now I found an interesting method online whereby someone took a bottle like this, filled it with brake fluid like so, such that the bottom of the tube was suspended in it, and apparently I can just hook this up to my bleeder screw and pump the brakes, and the stuff will come out and I don't need a second person to help me bleed. We're gonna test the validity of that today. So first thing we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna open our brake fluid reservoir. Fluid is kind of dirty, not the nicest looking fluid, right? Could use a flush. According to this, the level could stand to be higher, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of fluid and then we're gonna try bleeding. That should be plenty. Yeah, it's really gross in there. That's good. We'll get that out in a sec. Now, when you're doing this, you want to start with the furthest line, and then do the closest. Now, in my case, I'm only bleeding the front, so it's going to be the front right, followed by the front left. Once I'd flushed out all the old brake fluid, I bled the passenger side and then moved on to the driver's. Now, these Wilwood calipers have 4 bleed screws on them. Based on the orientation that they're going to be in your particular application, you're going to have bolts that are going to be facing up. You want to bleed the 2 bolts that are going to be facing up on either side. You'll start by bleeding the bleed screw that is closer to the brake line, in other words the inner one, and then you'll move to the outer one. The reasoning for this is because you have 4 pistons and they are 4 opposed pistons, so there's 2 on either side. You have to bleed one side and then bleed the other in order to get all of them engaging properly. The process of bleeding the brakes is actually pretty simple. You'll submerge the clear hose in brake fluid and connect it to the inner bleed screw. Place a zip tie on the end of the hose, just tight enough that you can slip it over the screw and get it to hold the hose in place, but not tight enough that you can't get the hose off. From there, you crack the screw open with a 1/4-inch flat wrench and proceed to pump the brakes. As you do so, the air will flow out of the braking system and into your bottle. Eventually, only fluid will flow out of the system. Every so often, you need to check the reservoir in order to make sure that it doesn't get too low. If it does, you'll have to add fluid and bleed the brakes all over again because you'll have allowed air to get into the system. Once you've completely bled one of the bleed screws, you'll use the 1/4-inch flat wrench to tighten it until it's shut. Then you remove the hose, not before. From there, you move on to the outer bleed screw and repeat the process. You'll know you're done because there will be no more air bubbles coming out as you pump the brakes, and your brake pedal will feel very firm. Be sure to test your brakes while rolling slowly down the driveway first, then move on to some low speed tests. Don't just try to pull out and go for a spin until you're 100% sure the brakes work as intended. Once you're done and everything is buttoned up, it's a good idea to wipe down your calipers and your wrenches. Brake fluid is corrosive and it will lead to oxidation over time. The method used here kept the brake fluid from ending up on the driveway, so there was no need to clean it afterward. Brake fluid will stain your driveway if you're not careful. Be sure to put the cap back on your brake fluid reservoir and clean around it as well. From there, I put my wheels back on and did a slow test, just letting the vehicle roll back on the driveway and tapping the brakes to stop it. I was satisfied with that, so I slowly drove around the block. Once all doubts were out of my mind, I set out to the road and bedded in the pads. With all of my preparations complete, it was time for an autocross. If you've never been to one, I highly recommend it. It's a safe and legal way to push your vehicle, and it will help you improve your driving skill considerably. Way better than stupid nonsense like street racing, where your talent won't grow and you only get to learn about the legal system. Cars are divided into classes based on vehicle and level of modification. Cars go out onto the course one by one with cones telling you where to turn, slalom, or go straight. It's a great way to learn the limits of your vehicle and develop quick reactions. It's also nice to know that there's no chance of hitting or being hit by another car.
Although I was prepared for the autocross, I was not prepared for the sudden two-step launch. I legitimately thought I was being shot at for about half a second. While my launches were nowhere near as spectacular as the beautiful red Wankel rocket, a combination of great tires, brakes finesse, and general anger at being shot at led me to run faster times than it. Not bad for a little Toyota truck with a stock engine. It may also surprise some people to know that my truck weighs less than the FD. While I'm more than sure it would blow the doors off the truck on the track or drag strip, Autocross rewards driving, tires, and suspension more than power. Yet another reason I'm a fan. Overall, this autocross was a great event and it made the stress of installing the brakes worth it. Due to it being an informal event where cars ran back to back, I was able to do about 50 runs. I left the track that day with 2 bald rear tires, a smile on my face, and a huge sense of satisfaction. That sense of accomplishment is exactly what I love about cars. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on Proper Style.
It's a Toyota Tacoma in its native environment, the racing paddock. You're not aware of this, but the Tacoma loves racetracks. Smellful, and it's got Wilwood brakes, mate. Oh my gosh. It's got some kind of fancy intake setup. Oh, I bet it's real fast, mate.